Finally, I can talk about this OnePlus Open phone here. So this is the first foldable phone coming from OnePlus here. And I don't want to turn this into like a Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 5 versus OnePlus Open video. Let me know down in the comments if you do want to see a dedicated video about these two phones. But I do want to show you the major difference, I will say, and that is with the outside screen here. So on this OnePlus Open here, you do have a 6.3-inch screen, and you can see that it is going to be a little bit wider, a little bit fatter than the candy bar screen here on the Galaxy Z Fold 5. And if this is going to become your daily phone, most of the time you're probably going to be using it when it's closed. So it's good to have a nice screen size ratio that doesn't really feel too cramped. Now, I didn't have that much trouble reaching the top of the screen, but you can enable this one-handed mode that you see on a lot of foldable phones that will allow you to swipe at the bottom of the screen, and that will pull down the top of the screen. And this is good for like websites and stuff, so it makes it a little bit easier to reach. But again, I didn't find myself having to do that much. Now, this is a 2K display. It does run at 120 hertz, and it is adaptive between 10 and 120 hertz. And it has 2800 nits peak brightness. So using this outside in daylight, it wasn't that bad at all. And when the phone is closed, it is relatively thin. So you can see this from the side profile, but it's also pretty lightweight too. So this uses like cobalt and titanium alloys and stuff to make it very lightweight. Now, as far as color options, I have the emerald dust color, which is basically OnePlus's green color. And then you also have an option for Voyager black, where it's actually using vegan leather on the back, and it feels really nice. But there also is a difference in weight depending on which color you get. So the Voyager black only weighs 239 grams, and the emerald dust version weighs 245 grams. And the reason for the difference in weight is because the Voyager black version is not using a glass back like the emerald dust version. But both versions of this phone will be lighter than the Galaxy Z Fold 5, which comes in at 253 grams. Now, there is a fingerprint scanner built into the power button on this phone, and it's okay, but I did find myself having to register my thumb a couple of times because the first time it wasn't really recognizing my placement of my thumb on the fingerprint scanner, even though I did the setup process right. But after I did that, it started to work a lot better. And real quick, as far as durability, the outside screen does have this ceramic glass protecting it. And then when you do open this phone up on the bigger screen, it does have ultra thin glass and also a built-in screen protector. They still recommend not to take that off. But OnePlus says with their testing, they were able to kind of open it and close it up to around like 1 million times. So this works out to like 100 times per day. And they say that this phone, durability wise, as far as like the bigger screen and folding and stuff, should be good for around 10 years. Now, by that time, we're probably going to have smartphones in our freaking eyeballs, but that's a pretty good long time that OnePlus is estimating that this phone should be able to last you opening and closing it all the time. Now, as far as water resistance, this phone is rated IPX4, so OnePlus says that this will be able to survive splashes from all angles. So you definitely don't want to like dump this in the pool or take it out in the ocean or anything for long periods of time. But I think if you do drop it in the toilet and put it right out, it should be fine. But also inside of the hinge, they actually have some drainage holes as well, which you don't hear a lot about, but that will allow that if water does get inside of that, it has somewhere to go out of those holes, which is actually pretty nice. Now, it might be kind of hard to see the camera bump on this phone. I'm joking. You can easily see this thing, but yeah, it is pretty big. Now, this does allow this phone to be easily identifiable from like maybe 10 miles away. But one thing I will say is that sometimes when I am holding the phone with just one hand, my index finger does creep up a little bit to kind of make sure I do get a good grip. And that, of course, is going to be smudging the cameras here. And so I have to remember to kind of wipe off the camera lens from time to time. But most of the time when I am holding the phone, my index finger is going to be right here under this camera bump, which is kind of thick here, and is going to be helping me kind of get a better grip on the phone. But now let's talk about this big primary display here. So this comes in at 7.82 inches. Now this does have an 120 hertz refresh rate, but it is adaptive. So it can go between 1 and 120 hertz. And this also has a peak brightness of 2800 nits. And this is the first phone to have dual LTPO 3.0 displays. So this bigger display and the smaller one on the front are both in this new kind of technology. But overall, I would say that the colors are really good. I did go into the settings and change it to vivid just to give the colors a little bit more punch. Normal or regular mode is just a little bit too flat for my taste, but when I did that, everything looked really great on here. You can watch Dolby Vision content on this with the HDR capabilities and stuff of the screen. But yeah, the screen to body ratio of the main screen is really nice. You do have a punch hole camera there, so you don't have an under display camera like you do find with like the Galaxy Z Fold 5, but this does give you a higher megapixel count, and we'll talk a little bit more about the cameras later on. But something else barely noticeable on this screen is the crease going down the middle, and so you can see when you're just looking directly at it, you can't see it at all. But if you do tilt the phone just a little bit, you will see that crease, but it's nowhere near as like deep as it is on the Galaxy Z Fold 5. And also when I am swiping on the screen and running my finger over the top of it, I still feel the crease, but it's not as like, again, deep as it is on the Z Fold 5. So that's a really good thing. And one of the main reasons why they were able to get this is because of their new Flexion hinge that they're using. So this is only really, I think, made up of around like 60 parts or so compared to like 100+ parts on other hinges. And so this does allow you to kind of fold and hold the phone like this. So this works with like the YouTube app and also the camera app. So you can have the controls at the bottom and like the viewfinder at the top for the camera app, which can be useful. And this hinge does help minimize any type of gap that you have when you do have the phone folded. So this will help keep things outside of the bigger screen here when you are putting this in your pocket and stuff, to keep it a little bit more reliable as far as durability and stuff. But yes, a really good feeling phone when you do have it folded or when you do have it open. So I really like it. But something that will make a lot of OnePlus fans happy is the fact that you do have the alert slider on this phone. So they did redesign this to make this a little bit thinner and smaller and stuff. But overall, you still have the ability to be able to slide this thing down to go between ring and also vibrate and also silent. So it's nice to see that on this phone. Now, what I'm about to talk about is more of a creator problem, but I do change my SIM cards a lot. And on the Z Fold 5, the SIM card tray is on the front part of the phone. But if you are using some type of protective case where you have like a little bumper part that you need to put on the front display, that typically uses some type of adhesive. And so every time I need to go change my SIM card, I'm peeling that off and it just loses its kind of like secureness over time. I think that's the right word to use there. But the good thing about this OnePlus Open is that the SIM card tray is on the back part of the phone. So inside of the box with the OnePlus Open, you will be getting a protective case, and that includes the front bumper for the front of the phone and also this little removable back plate for the back. And the case feels nice, but again, if I need to change my SIM card, I just need to take that back plate off and I can easily pop it back on and with no problem. And OnePlus is still one of those companies including a wall charger inside of the box. So with this Open, you will get a 80-watt wall charger that will be able to charge up this 4805 milliamp hour battery from 1 to 100% in around 42 minutes. And my experience with the battery life on this phone has been pretty solid for all day use. Now, of course, if I'm just playing Call of Duty on this thing all day, the battery is going to drain and I might not make it until bedtime. But for just general use, playing some games here and there, watching some YouTube videos throughout the day, like the battery life has been pretty good. And also standby time is really good as well. While I was testing another phone for a day or two, I didn't use this phone, but when I went back to it, the battery life didn't change that much. So I was pretty happy with the standby time too. One notable thing missing as far as like charging is going to be wireless charging. So no wireless charging on this phone. So OnePlus feels that that is an important feature, but right now they wanted to kind of focus on other things and try to make sure they can keep the price relatively down, and they didn't want to add wireless charging. So personally, I still mostly do wired charging just because it's just going to be faster typically. But still, for a phone that costs $16.99, I think a lot of people still want to see wireless charging because that's a feature that you see on phones that cost just a couple of $100s these days. But that might not be make or break for you, but it might be. So anyway, no wireless charging on this phone. Oh, and speaking of gaming, this thing is a little bit of a gaming power horse. So the brains of this phone will be the Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 chipset inside of here. And then this phone also does come with 16 gigabytes of RAM. And this was plenty of juice to play all the games that I was playing with no problems on this phone. And I also noticed that the phone really didn't get that warm as well. And I played Call of Duty for about an hour and I was just holding the phone with no case and it didn't feel that warm. Just a tad bit warm, but nothing that would be concerning at all. But if you do want to like max out your frame rate and just really squeeze out all the juice of power while you are gaming, you can swipe down from the top left-hand corner of the screen, and then now this will bring up like this gaming control center, and you can adjust a bunch of different settings. You can open up an app that you'd like to use while you're gaming and just have that kind of floating on top. And some other key specs about this phone is that this only has a 512 gigabyte storage configuration, so no 128, no 1 terabyte, 512 is what you get. It also does have Wi-Fi 7 and also dual 5G dual SIM support. And this phone also does come with 3 speakers that are used for spatial audio. So this should be able to simulate sound coming all around you. But again, it is coming from one single source, not like a traditional setup where you actually have physical speakers around you. So I'm going to play this spatial audio clip real quick. This is regular. Now spatial. but I will say, at least from like the left and right, I did hear a difference in the audio tests that I've done before, and also some other different music that's copyrighted. Left to right is fine, but as far as like above and behind my head, I didn't really hear that much going on with it. But for regular traditional audio, the speakers do get pretty loud and they are clear for what I'm hearing. But you know what? I have to say, one of my favorite things about this phone is just the software experience. So it is running Oxygen OS 13, and that's running on top of Android 13. And of course, Android 13 does have a lot of good software features that work for foldable phones, like this little taskbar that shows up at the bottom. And so this taskbar will show apps that you have added down there, and also some of your recent apps on the right-hand side of it. But on the left-hand side, you will find a couple of things that OnePlus has added themselves to the taskbar. So one will be this little button here on the far left that will allow you to see all of the apps that you have here. So you can scroll through them, you can do a search for them. But then also to the right of that, you'll find this recents folder. So this will show you recent images and documents, and also some other things like music and stuff that you have access on this phone. And then now with compatible apps like Gmail and also Google Messages and stuff, you can now drag and drop maybe like a photo over into like an email directly from this without having to go to your photo album and then copy it and then move it over. Now you can just open this up at any time that you have the taskbar open, and then now you can just move that over, which is very convenient. Now you can also choose to hide this taskbar just by holding down on it for a couple of seconds and it'll disappear, and then you can do the same thing to bring it back up. And then also you do have the smart sidebar that you can enable, so you can swipe this over from a side of a screen, and then now you can have access to certain apps and things that you like to use a lot. Now when you are using the bigger screen, the screen is basically split into like two halves as far as like the home screen software. So your widgets, your apps, and your folder icons and stuff like that basically are going to be split down the middle on two sides. And you can customize, of course, this to your liking, but this is good because when you do fold the phone and you start using that outside screen, everything is basically going to be nicely organized, just like it was on the bigger screen. You just are going to be looking at one half of the screen at a time. Now, also, you do have three different settings as far as what happens when you are using the screen unfolded and then you close the phone or fold it up. So the first option is going to be that you're just going to continue what you're doing on that main screen on the front screen. So if you have like Instagram open, it will just continue on that front screen. And then the second option is that when you do close it, at the bottom, it will tell you that you can swipe up to continue doing what you were doing. Now it gives you just a few seconds, and after the few seconds, if you don't do anything, the screen will go ahead and go to sleep. Now the third option is just going to be when you close the phone goes to sleep. But by far the best software feature on this phone is called Open Canvas, and this is OnePlus's take on multitasking, so running 2 or 3 or more apps on this phone at the same time. So basically, if you do have an app open, you can just take 2 fingers and swipe down from the top of the screen, and you'll see this line start to divide the screen and then split open. And then now from here, it'll take you to your home screen, and now you can swipe and find the app that you want to open next to that app that you already have open. And then once you find that, tap on it, and now you have 2 apps running side by side. And from here, you can resize the apps and stuff like that, but we've seen that before. But the magic is when you do add a third app. So from the taskbar, I can choose an app and then I can slide it over, and now I have the option to either just drag it on top of another app to switch it to that new app, or I can drag it to the bottom here and you'll see this option to add it to the split view. And then now what you'll see is basically what you just saw before with 2 apps, but now on either the left or the right hand side of the screen, you'll see a little bit of a sliver of the third app, and now you can quickly tap on that and that will move over the apps. So that will also be showing up on the screen next to the app that was to the left or the right of it. And this just makes a lot of sense, right? So this is way better than having 3 apps crammed on the screen at the same time. Some of those apps can work well in that type of format, but a lot of the times you'll find that 2 of those apps are going to be a little bit cramped, but this gives you a lot of space. But the fun doesn't stop there. So now you can choose on one of the apps and you can choose this expand option, and this will expand that particular app, but those 2 other apps are still just 1 tap away at the top of the screen. So now when you tap on those 2, it'll slide those 2 down, and now you can interact with those. But then when you want to go back to that bigger window, maybe you're watching like a YouTube video or a movie or something, now you can easily just tap on that at the bottom and switch back over to that. So this is hands down the best way to multitask with 3 apps on a foldable phone that I've seen to date. And this really does make it useful, and it doesn't make it feel like you're having any compromises. Now also on my home screen, you can see that I do have a few different kind of like presets for running running multiple apps at a time. So I have a few that are used for running 2 apps at a time, and then I also have one for 3 of my favorite apps that I like to use. And then also below those, you'll see one of these software features that I really like that Oppo and OnePlus do, and that's the fact that you have these really big folders that you can add to your home screen. So you can shrink these down to the normal smaller size folders, but what's the fun in that, right? So with these bigger folders, you can still swipe to see the other apps, or you can even enlarge them and then be able to swipe through and see the apps inside of them. But yeah, it just makes for a very nice format, especially on a bigger size screen like this OnePlus Open has. So overall, the speed and performance of Oxygen OS and also that multitasking, I think OnePlus is at a really good point here with the software, but we'll see how time goes and how much they continue to update the software to take advantage of the bigger size screen. Speaking of updates, this OnePlus Open will get 4 years of major Android updates and 5 years of security updates. All right, so now for the camera portion of this review. So right now I'm using the front-facing camera on the outside display or the cover display, whatever you want to call it. And I have Bruce Lee back there behind me. But yeah, this is recording at 4K 30 frames per second. You can also record at 4K 30 frames per second using the front-facing camera that's on the bigger display. And I should be showing you some footage using that camera right now. So yeah, I haven't listened to this video back yet, so I don't know how the microphone quality does sound right now, but you let me know down in the comments. But now I'm just going to be showing you some photos and videos using the rear-facing cameras. So you have your ultra-wide, your wide angle, and your telephoto cameras. Now with the telephoto cameras, you do have 3 times optical zoom, but OnePlus says this phone also does have 6 times lossless zoom. So using that 6 times button, you shouldn't see that much of a decrease in quality. So with a little bit of light, these cameras do produce some really good results with that Hasselblad technology and color science that they have in partnership with OnePlus here. Now when it comes to nighttime photography, it's not going to beat out anything like the S23 Ultra or the iPhone 15 Pro, but if you are able to keep relatively still, you can get some good results. But if you do have some movement, blurriness is very easy to creep into your photos. Now in the video department, I actually walked away a little bit more impressed than what I thought I would be. Now this video right here I'm showing you is just straight out of the camera, 4K 60 frames per second using the rear facing camera, but this phone can also record in Dolby Vision HDR. So I was able to go out to the STL City SC game. My boy Jojo hooked me up with some really sweet tickets, but yeah, you can see that the video quality is actually really good because our team is also really good. I have to brag a little bit, but yeah, the Dolby Vision actually is something that I can see myself using if I am using this phone as my daily driver, but also I do want to capture some content for my YouTube videos and stuff. I was actually really impressed with it. But even still, if you don't want to use Dolby Vision, you just want to use the regular video recording capabilities, in daytime is fine. At night things get a little bit grainy, as you can see here, but as a whole the stabilization was really solid. All of this video footage that I am showing you is handheld, but at the end of the day the video quality was actually a lot better than what I expected, but definitely something that can compete with other flagship phones and especially other foldable phones. But when it comes to a foldable phone like this, it's not always just the picture quality, but how you can take that picture. So you can use the rear facing cameras in conjunction with the front display or the outer display to take a selfie, photo, or video with the rear facing cameras. And with the Hinge on this phone, it's basically a built-in tripod. So now you can fold it in half and then place it down somewhere and then set the timer, and then now you can go ahead and join your group of friends to take a group photo. But yeah, after looking at these photos and videos, you let me know what you think about the quality down in the comments. So look, we really needed this phone here in North America, at least, because there are other phones from different brands that have similar size screens and stuff like that that are sold across the world. But yeah, this OnePlus Open you can buy on oneplus.com, also bestbuy.com, and amazon.com. And yeah, this phone does cost $16.99, as I mentioned before, but they do have this deal where you can trade in any phone from any year, any condition. It can be completely broken, I'm assuming, and OnePlus will at least give you $200 off of the phone, dropping that price down to $14.99. So yeah, if I got this right, you can take like a T-Mobile Sidekick from back in the day and the screen could be cracked on it and the battery could be missing, and they will take it and give you $200 off at the very minimum. But if you do trade in like an iPhone 15 Pro Max for some reason, they will give you, of course, more than $200. I think it's up to around $1,000. But again, all that's going to be dependent on the phone, make and model, and all that stuff. But that information will be on their website. So look, I feel at the normal price of $16.99, this still is a very solid phone. But at $14.99, you're definitely going to be raising a bunch of eyebrows where people will kind of forgive the lack of wireless charging, but everything else that OnePlus has done with this phone, the fit and finish, the software, the screen, the build quality, even the camera quality, it's pretty solid. And if you haven't really given OnePlus a chance here in the last few years, but you are interested in a foldable phone, this is definitely one of the top on the market as far as what I've used to date. And so my final word will be that this has given us the competition that we need in this space, and I'm here for it. So this is my review of the OnePlus Open. Let me know what you think about this phone down in the comments below. And like always, I do want to thank you for watching this video, and I will catch you later. Peace.